Hello and welcome to the penultimate panel discussion of Series 13, where we take a look at the episode Survivors of Flux. And to discuss this episode with me, I have two dear and valued guests who are close to my heart, including the long-anticipated return of Shay.
The king is back, baby. Let's go.
The king is truly back and with us. And we also have Conrad as well.
Yeah, fucking Chris Chibnall can suck my dick hole.
Get off the stage.
Yeah, but Shay's back. He's yeah. We are down under special guests.
Yeah, I think we need Shay here because Connor really hates this episode. I don't like this episode, whereas Shay doesn't have a strong opinion. So we need somebody zen, somebody to calm us down.
I'm like a UN Peace Corps.
Yeah, we are about to commit some war crimes in this panel discussion, so be warned.
Shay, the thing is, Shay's a Zen monk, but he's from the other side of the mountain in Doctor Who lore, where they actually take things seriously rather than in this episode, which is fucking atrocious.
He's already dropped his first bomb on a civilian population with that. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Anyway, first thing that we're going to talk about is Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor, as we usually do. How do we think she did in this episode? Shay, I'd be interested to hear, because I don't think I've heard your opinion on Jodie Whittaker since Series 11.
Yeah, well, look, I'll be honest, I skipped Series 12. I didn't bother.
Based.
But I saw, like, the marketing for Flux, and I was like, alright, this looks fine. So I watched it, and I get, like, the criticism that, you know, she's doesn't exactly have much of a definable personality. But I think in the last few episodes, I've kind of enjoyed... I think Jodie Whittaker is undeniably a really great actress. It's just that Chibnall still doesn't feel like 3 years in, he doesn't know what he wants to do and what he wants from her. So she just sort of feels very generic in terms of Doctor personality. And she wasn't even in this one a whole lot. So it's hard to say what I thought of her in this. The only bit I liked was, like, that I can, like, think of from her is at the end where she says, like, I'm gonna stop you, you're fucked, etc. She doesn't say those exact words, obviously.
Very high praise there, Shay.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, she's, like, barely in it, and she's a really good actress, but she's been given nothing in this episode.
I know. She's wasted. She has a lot of talent that's not really shown in the show because the show is too cardboard with this character. But if you watch, like, something like Broadchurch, some of the anguish she shows in that show really shows her range. But the problem with the 13th Doctor is just I mean, I can sum it up really in that scene where she says, morality is never a flaw. Morality is a strength.
Yeah, my morality is when it's good to kill people to cull the population so that everybody has better lives. Like that. Well, yeah, that would be morality, but it's not good.
Yeah, how is it profound to say good is good and bad is bad?
I had to write that down, actually, because I've never heard
to think
such a
that you're
thing before.
To be so thick-headed, and remember, this is like 1,000-year-old, like, scientist, right, that's dealt with so many moralities and all these worlds and everything, and all these people, especially think of the fucking Daleks or whatever, or the Time Lords, and she just makes this weird assumption that her opponent doesn't believe in morality, which is just so ass backwards. It's like, of course they believe in morality, it's just different from yours. And that's the nuance of how people work. It's not...
Is like the Doctor religious now? Do they believe in objective morality? Like, what is this nonsense?
No, I honestly, I mean, I think Jay actually has pointed out before that Chibnall always goes for, like, those really static moral binaries, but this is, like, the most extreme it's ever gone. It's like just completely misunderstanding how people interpret morality. Just be like, oh yes, the people that that have bad morals, they know they don't have morals. It's like, no, that's not how it fucking works, Chibnall, you idiot. Use your brain.
Yeah, you don't understand, Connor. When bad woman does bad things, she knows it's bad. And if only people would do good things, because we all know what good is, it'll all be fine.
Oh my god.
I mean, this actually explains Rosa, because I remember one of my big criticisms of it was like how the space racist is just kind of racist for no reason, and they completely miss an opportunity to explore what motivates racism, which could have made it a much more powerful message. But instead, it's just like he racist and he lose.
Like what a massive downgrade and backpedal for this like really interesting character as well. You know, like think of like even something as recently as like series 10, you'll have the 12th Doctor saying like, well, what about the people that you're forcing to do your work for you? You know, like actually asking questions about the context of the scenario. You know, talking to the villain who's doing things that they believe that they're allowed to do, but are abusing people or whatever, or maybe just talking about like a corrupt system or any point in the show. Look at any John Pertwee story. Like they actually go into the situation, whereas with here, there's no fucking story. It's just good is good, bad is bad. Clap for me.
Please clap.
I hate it so much. I'm so ready for Chibnall to fucking leave this show. Seriously, oh my god, it does my head in. Actually does my head in.
God, you've managed to squeeze much more out of this lemon than I thought you would, because you barely appeared in this episode.
Well, the thing is that a lot of people just sort of like let that shit go over their heads, but like I actually care. Like, I actually care about this stuff.
Well, honestly,
maybe I just shouldn't.
I'd forgotten that moment just because it's happened so much in this era, and to a lesser extent, I feel it's been something that's been present in a lot of New Who. In terms of like kind of moral aggrandizement, presenting things as very simplistic. I just kind of rolled my eyes and thought, oh yeah, whatever.
But you know what? Shay's right on one thing. None of this is Jodie Whittaker's fault. It's all fucking Chris Chibnall's fault. He's the reason this shit happens.
Well, I mean, Shay probably hasn't heard this. I've said it on my channel a few times. I remember seeing in an interview Chris Chibnall saying, "Oh, I want to write my script so that the actor/actress has a lot of leeway to make their own character." But then Jodie Whittaker says, "Oh, well, I just do what Chris writes on the script for the character."
Yeah.
So it's like
she's like a real like professional actor, you know. She's like follows the script dead on, and because Chibnall's scripts are just this fucking blank slate of nothing, it's like, what do you have left? You just have this cardboard doctor with like a moral binary and just really just nothing. It's real sad, man.
The weird thing is that like he, as a writer, his strengths clearly lie in sort of like genuine dramatic human interactions with like Broadchurch and stuff. Mm-hmm. So like why is he writing a family sci-fi show, especially when he seems to care so little about writing anything for the main character?
Well, yeah, I've said
like
before
the weird thing.
The tone of the Chibnall era is really strange because it's like it's written like this really childish, patronizing, like fourth wall breaking, thinking out loud, fucking morality piece that you'd see on like a CBeebies. But then it's also cinematography wise, it's shot like a fucking Sunday night drama, like a funeral. With like
there is no consistency in tone.
Just with a bit of, you know, like lens flares and oversaturated color grading just to spice it up a bit. It's like, who's the target audience for this? Like, who's this meant to be watched by?
It feels like nobody's actually communicating with each other in terms of when they're making it about what they want to go for, what kind of tone they want to set, who they want to reach out for. Because, I mean, I already talked about how, like, you know, Chris and Jodie not communicated on how they want to characterize the Doctor, and that's obviously led to problems. And that just seems to be present everywhere, where it's like some episodes would be like, ooh, this is the comedy episode, but it's still, like you said, shot like a fucking funeral.
Yeah, it's like the left hand's not talking to the right hand. It's real weird.
I can't think of another TV show that's really been like this. I can't think of any other era of Doctor or any other episode of Doctor that's kind of had this issue where they've
not really
fundamentally misunderstood what the tone is going for, both on script and production level.
Like, there's a few standalone stories that have a bit of clashing tone, but there's been nothing that's like this consistently bizarre as the sort of warped Chibnall flavor. Because it's just a sort of homogenization of a bunch of things that's happened before all stitched together, and it's just weird, man. It's weird.
Right, so we've kind of completely veered off Jodie Whittaker, and well, I think that's fair because she didn't really do much in this episode. So let's move on.
The only other thing I really have to say about the Doctor isn't really to do with her performance. It's more just to do with the fucking lore stuff.
Oh, well, don't worry. We'll get onto the lore stuff. We will get onto the lore stuff. That's the bit I'm most peeved about. First base touch is the companions. Dan, Yaz. I don't think Vinder was in this episode, so we don't need to talk about him.
Vinder was in the episode. He just didn't do anything.
Wait,
he was like walking down the corridor with a gun.
I completely forgot about that. But he didn't do anything, so it's not worth discussing.
Mate,
But yeah.
The pacing of the episode was so weird that you probably just forgot all of the shit that was in it. It's a bit like episode 1. It's just like so darting around the place. Like, yeah, there was a whole side plot with Vinder and Belle. Like, you probably forgot about it, and then there was like Carvanista as well. Anyway.
Oh yeah, that happens. That happened, didn't it? Sorry, I completely forgot. Anyway, yeah. What do we think about Yaz and Dan and their subplot? Then we'd go with the companions, and we'll just lump Jericho in with that. Do you want to go, Connor?
Well, I mean, Yaz misses the Doctor, and she gets a message from her explaining everything that's happening in the plot in exposition. Rather, like imagine if in the Parting of the Ways when the Doctor sends Rose back to Earth because she's in danger of being killed by all those Daleks. And instead of, the really quite, personal scene, it's just this fucking exposition dump about, like, so here you're going to go back home and stay with your mum, and that's what's going to happen, and I'm going to stay here and fight. It's like, there's just no... there's no emotion. It's just this really fucking tedious, like, oh, I'm here busy doing this plot while you're going to be back there. So make sure you wait around, and I'm sure you'll be fine. Like, where's the emotion?
Mandip Gill is trying so hard, like, in terms of acting, to give this some dramatic weight, but just she can't manage it with the writing.
Exactly, because Mandip Gill's really, really good at doing this, but it's just the character, it's just nothing. It's so hollow. Like, what connection do they have? They're just friends that travel together? Is that it?
Can we think of anything they've actually done together where it's kind of been like, they've worked in tandem and in like a kind of experience which has drew them closer together? I can't think of one.
Then like the resolution of that scene is just Dan walking and be like, I'm sure it'll be alright. And that's it? That's all you get? And it's like, what is this? What is this drama? It's just nothing. It's so hollow. It's just, it feels like this bit, like, dot-to-dot draft of things I've just seen so many times before, but with there's nothing, like, authentic about it. It's just, person is sad because they miss person that they like. Support person walks in and says, you'll be fine.
I'll tell you a trope I'm getting sick of, and this episode is when I really began to notice it, how a lot in the Chibnall era, and this was actually the case in some of the Moffat era as well, where, like, the silly, foolish man will make undignified entrance, then the self-assured and confident woman will make perfect entrance and put the man to shame. Like, it's fine to do that occasionally, but it seems to be every scene!
Some people
I love the idea that...
We call you an NMD. Anyway.
The script would just say scene 5, interior, ship cabin, that exact phrase in block capital letters, and then scene 6.
Yeah.
But it happened twice in this episode.
We're 5 episodes in, and Jericho still has pretty much hardly any character whatsoever.
Well, Jericho's only been in 2 episodes, and he was great in the last episode. But in this episode,
he was really good in the last one.
He's had Ashad syndrome, because remember how great Ashad was in The Haunting of Villa Diodati, and then Chibnall completely ruined him. Again with Maxine Alderton.
Maxine Alderton actually writes a story with like characters and people and a world and fleshed out like traits and everything, whereas Chibnall's just like, he is a man. And he's doing things.
Well, I tell you what is really annoying me about Dan. They did actually establish in his first episodes a lot of the character traits he had, and you could kind of see how that could influence his decision-making in Adventures in the TARDIS. Like, for example, him being a bit too selfless, etc., etc. And then we get to the actual meat and potatoes of the story. He just fucking does nothing but walk into rooms, be a bit clueless, then the Yaz or the Doctor sorts it out. Like, this isn't a character!
I guess technically there was that scene where Yaz pushed that guy down, which shows her police skills or something. I guess that's something I can say. But that's it, really. Oh, actually, now I remember. Because this is relevant to Yaz, Dan, and Jericho. Should we talk about the fucking hermit scene?
Okay, go on. Right. Feel free. Have your hermit scene rant. Go on.
Hey, Shay, do you want to go first, or should I go first on this one?
Yeah, I'll get my thoughts.
Yeah, come on, Shay. Come on!
Things got nuts. And while Connor's talking, I can take a break and go make a sandwich or something. I think that in terms of I really like Dan, I gotta say. John Bishop is essentially just playing himself, and if it fucking works, it fucking works, and it does. I liked that like their plot throughout the episode mostly sort of felt like Doctor Who does Carmen Sandiego, in the sense they're just sort of like all over the place. It's very messy, but like
Yeah,
I don't know. I kind of liked it.
I just don't really understand how they got to all those places in one
Yeah.
year.
Well, I'm looking forward to
And
the
how do they
8 Big
fund
Finish
it as well? How do they
box
pay for
sets
it?
that explain
It's just
everything.
bizarre, man.
And I hate this trope,
awful.
this Chibnall era trope of like, let's make things big by having them go to like five different
I'm
locations for one
sorry
scene
to-
each.
I'm sorry to butt in, but I'm so fucking sick of that font just popping on my screen. I hate that font so much. It's such a little nitpick, but I hate it. I hate the font. It's just so ugly.
Anyway, Shay, we're ruining your build-up as you want to charge in for the kill, so...
Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me get into it. The hermit scene sucked. It was not funny. It's really lame. That's maybe the worst scene I've seen in anything this year. It was bad. I'm not like furious about it. I know Connor's about to fucking rip a hole in the fabric of space and time, but I just thought it was just embarrassing. It was really embarrassing, and I don't know why they thought that it was acceptable to put that out at on primetime television. Like that was just unspeakably awful. It sucked, and it's
was
like
a
so
pointless
totally
thing,
at
too.
odds with everything.
It adds nothing to the story, too.
Yeah, it's like the tone leading up to this has had nothing to do with this.
Wait, wasn't the scene with those characters
had, like, a
before?
comedic tone in general, but like it's nothing at all. It just has nothing.
Wasn't the scene with these characters, Dan, Yaz, and Jericho, before this one, the one where they were, like morbidly throwing a dead body off the edge of a ship?
See, I liked all that stuff. I really like stuff like that. I just remembered another bit. I love when they're in that like market, and then someone like lights some dynamite, and instead of blowing out the fuse, like Yaz just like puts 2 blankets over it, and she's like, "Yeah, I've done all I can do." What? No.
It's the perfect defense against dynamite.
Also, you got a point, Lord Sly. This is the same episode where a guy kills himself with like cyanide in his tooth or something, and now we're supposed to laugh at some man on a mountain who with a British accent. It's like, what the fuck's going on, man?
I will just say, as a final point, they do capture, with Yaz, they capture a really good element of police officers, which is that they're incompetent sociopaths. I gotta praise Chibnall for that. He knows what he's doing.
I would praise him for it if I thought it was intentional.
Yeah, if it was on purpose.
All right, Connor, this is your time to shine, buddy.
All right, thanks for that, Shay. You did great. Right, I'm just gonna take our minds back about 55 years to the 1960s, when things, from our point of view now, things could get a little bit dodgy back then with some of the, the tones of how things are handled, especially with social issues. But I tell you what, let's go to a story called The Abominable Snowman, which takes place in the Himalayas on the other side of the mountains in Tibet, where the Tibetan monks were taken really seriously, had fully developed characters. The Doctor, the same character that appears in this episode, even though they don't meet the person in this one, it's actually the companions. But anyway, the Doctor, and I assume the companions from memory, have the utmost respect for their culture, and it's like a really sad event when they leave the mountains. It actually like gives you a real like insight to like, oh yeah, this is what, it's kind of the history thing, in the sense it's a pseudo-historical because it's got the Yeti and the Great Intelligence, but you also get a bit of like, oh yeah, these monks that live in the mountains, it's like this kind of cool mystery, but also something from our history. And it's really interesting. And then you get an episode like this where it's like, oh yes, we're going to meet. And in fact, when I even saw the mountains, I'm like, oh, are we going to get some kind of reference to Abominable Snowman or something, or is it going to be some kind of world building? And we get to the top of this mountain, and there's this Nepalese, I think he's a monk or some kind of hermit.
Hermit. I think he was just a hermit.
I think he's a hermit. Yeah, he's a hermit. And it's like, okay, this could be really interesting. And especially because I've got a friend from where I work who's Nepalese, and she's told me some real interesting things about her country and her culture, and like I've learned a lot of things about Nepal, and it's a really interesting country. And obviously, it's quite historic, especially considering that the first person to climb Everest on record is from New Zealand. So I know plenty about Nepal. We learn about it in school. It's a really fucking interesting country, and it could make for a hell of a Doctor Who story, especially a historical, based on the Himalayas. So they go there, and there's this hermit, and they're trying to ask him about something, and instead of a really interesting dive into this man's culture or whatever, he's got a fucking Pommy accent, and he tells some joke that's like really, this just insulting caricature of this culture, and it's just really cringe. And I honestly, I'm absolutely gobsmacked that one, this made it to TV, and two, people actually thought this was fucking funny. Like, I honestly don't understand that. Like, it's just this for me is like the bottom of the barrel when it comes to like the kind of comedy that you get in a show like this. I mean, the only thing that could probably get worse than this is if you actually started like yelling out offensive slurs and all that, But this man, this was just so bad. This is so fucking bad, man. Oh my god! And like, I've got a friend who's, I can't remember which country his parents are from or his background, but he's from. His background comes from like a country that's near Nepal,
Bhutan,
or something like that. Like it's
is it Bhutan?
Culture,
Tibet,
culture. Might be India, might be Pakistan, something like that. I can't 100% remember, but he mentioned he watched that scene and he just felt so uncomfortable because he's like, why am I being making fun of? Like why is the kind of culture that I'm representing being shown in this real fucking caricature way? And it's just so tone deaf. Like, weird how people try and make Christian like he's some kind of really inclusive woke guy, and especially like Not My Doctors do this, and even the Jodie bots do this. They're like, oh, he's our hero because he cast a female doctor and he's so inclusive. Or the Not My Doctors like, no, down with Chibnall. But they're both fucking wrong because he doesn't actually incorporate culture into a story in like a really respectful way. He just has them in it, tells a joke, and then moves on. And then what makes it even worse is that right in this scene, you have someone like Yasmin Khan, who's half Indian and half Pakistani, who surely would be interested in this part of the world. But no, she just laughs and gets on with it, and it's a pointless thing in the story. It didn't need to happen, doesn't advance anything, and it's fucking awful. This scene, honestly, is one of the worst I've ever seen in the show, and I agree with Shay on that. It's so cringe.
Top 10 anime murders. Number 1, Connor murders Chris Chibnall.
But I haven't been this angry about Doctor Who in a very long time. This scene actually is so bad.
Yeah, it sucks.
Man.
It is very bad.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would quite go as far as you, but I can definitely see where you're coming from.
It's real wasted potential. Like, and a lot of Chibnall era is too, but like this is just a whole like pile of things combined into one. And I think
really it demonstrates the problem for me of just thinking, oh yeah, I know how to write an epic scale, big, long story. What if I just throw a billion things happening in a billion different locations, but don't spend any time developing it all, and it'll work.
That goes back to just an overall problem that Chibnall has with pacing. He just doesn't know how to pace storytelling.
A million hooks will suffice to engage an audience. Right, so we're going to move on now to the plot of this episode. And off camera, Connor decided he wanted me to take this. So I'm going to start off by talking about Tech Tyun in this episode. So it's one thing to kind of show that there was this whole thing about the Doctor's past, and they had somebody who was kind of their mother but also experimenting on them, and then there was all these kind of vague Doctors before William Hartnell, blah blah blah. That's one thing. It's one thing to do that in terms of the mystery the show has, because I think we should remember the title was always the whole point of the show, Doctor Who, that we didn't quite know everything about them. There was always an air of mystery about them, but now we know their fucking mother. We know the Doctor's mother now. We've got to know them as a character, well, at least to the extent to which a Chibnall script allows. And that really rubs me the wrong way, because it's like, what the fuck don't we know about the Doctor now? We know their people, we know how they did at school, we know who their friends were, we now know their mother, we now know that they were like, foundational in Time Lord society because of falling out some random wormhole. And, rather than just being this kind of mysterious renegade dropout from their society. And I just really, really don't like this direction for the show. And I think what makes it even more insulting is the fact that Chibnall feels, after 57 years, 58 years, has the balls to make the Doctor's mother be a character on the screen. Bear in mind, we haven't seen any of the Doctor's family apart from Susan in any of the other series for the last 58 years, and he has the balls to bring the Doctor's adoptive mother into the show as a character, only to kill her off almost instantly. How sick am I, and probably you too, of showrunners, Chibnall and Moffat, of completely rewriting the show's lore for the sake of a few cheap shocks in one episode and then just binning it. It's bullshit. I've had enough of it, and I'll be so happy. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'll be so happy when RTD comes back.
Yes. I want to hear you say that so much.
My standards are so low.
You make a good point about the title of the show, because at this point it's just Doctor Who fucking cares. Like,
Doctor, what the fuck don't we know about you?
Not only do we have like an entire fucking gossip magazine dedicated to her history at this point, but it's not even interesting. It's such a bland, generic bullshit fucking history that it's, firstly, doesn't make sense. Secondly, is not interesting. And thirdly, what the fuck was the point of it? You're just gonna kill her off straight away. It's like, I don't care. I don't care. Why do people want to know about this shit? And like, why do people think that what we got was interesting when she's just literally like, everything you are is because of me? It's like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
And what has this changed about the Doctor's character? It's like, it's done nothing of importance apart from give the Doctor less mystery.
Oh, but Dylan, you don't understand. He's made us ask more questions. So it's made the franchise new again. And, like, you had the Doctor, constantly like, oh, well, you don't know why I came through that portal. Was someone was waiting for me? It's just like, why are we doing this? Why does Chibnall think that this is what, I mean, clearly there is an audience for this. So clearly this is what people want to see. So I don't know, is there anyone watching this who actually thinks this is really interesting? Can you leave in the comments why you think it's interesting? I don't get it. I don't get what's so interesting about this shit. It's so fucking bland and just... Teg Tayun doesn't have a personality. She's just like this cardboard mother machine that just jangles keys about the Doctor's past and says, "Ooh, I'm not going to tell you all the secret things until you make sure you obey me."
And for me, just all this just ruins what was so unique about the Doctor as a character. I loved the Doctor as a character because they weren't like some kind of special chosen one or whatever. They were just some random fuck-up dropout of a really advanced society who was special because of their actions rather than because of any innate things about them.
I also really liked the idea that they it was their adventures along the way that we got to experience with them that built up their reputation with all these like forces in the universe. So, like, for example, all of the things that they did with the Daleks, like if you think about the Genesis of the Daleks or whatever, or like the Time War, how like now the Daleks like fear and respect the Doctor because of all the things they've done in the things we've seen them do. Whereas now it's like, oh no, they were already special before they left Gallifrey. It's just, it was all destiny and it was all set up because of this fucking woman that we don't know anything about. It's like, what you're doing is you're recontextualizing everything we understand, what we really like about this character. It's like, why couldn't we have had it be that, the first Doctor was, again, like you said, just some random outcast dropout that through all of their adventures developed into this, really quite amazing person that really, puts their life on the line to make things right in the universe with like, things like, like encouraging Thals to defend themselves from death or or wanting to stop a war that's going to destroy people, or just anything, even at the ground level, just small little things like that. That's what made the character so interesting to me, is that the Doctor was interested in people and all the worlds around, and people learned about them because of all the actions they did. But then they also, didn't stick around to get a prize given to them. They would just leave in their TARDIS, let them sort things out. Like that to me is what the Doctor is. And I don't like the fact that now none of this was just built up to, and none of this came as a result of the Doctor meeting Ian and Barbara and having them teach him about compassion and empathy. It was all just a fucking setup and a memory wipe. And it's like, we're just rubbing salt in the wound of the Timeless Child stuff, and it's just like I honestly don't understand why people think this is a good idea. Like, it's just fundamentally so opposite of what's great about this character. And not only that, the new stuff we're getting, all it is just this really wanky teasing and fucking like, oh, you won't find out information until the very last minute, and then I'm gonna be killed. Like, why is that the story? Why is it not like, if you're going to do something new, why don't you develop it? Give us, Tecteon's personality, her backstory, the dynamic between them. Why don't you tell us, and show us the relationship they have, rather than just be like, you don't know what this information is until I tell you what it is, and then that's the story. I honestly despise this kind of storytelling.
Me too, man. I'd be interested to hear what you think, Shay. Is obviously you didn't see the Timeless Children when it aired, and obviously I think you probably have a different perspective from me and Connor, so I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think that, like, just in terms of, like, lore and canon, I could not care less about it. It's just like...
Enough, man.
It's like, who fuck... Like, not only just like, oh, I don't care if they change the lore, just I don't care about, like, writing lore into the story. I don't care. It's just like... Oh, they're doing lore.
It is the laziest form of storytelling.
Yeah. Like, when they drop a reference to the Brigadier, I'm like, yeah, fucking whatever, man, who gives a shit?
Yeah, man. I think Chibnall should have just stayed the fuck away from this shit. He should have just done, like, new stories,
Yeah. But the thing is, like, the thing that, like, I'm not even that annoyed about the whole, like, oh, this is the Doctor's, like, adopted mother thing. Like, whatever, if you want to do that, sure, go ahead. I don't really care. But the thing is, like, the character was in one episode before this, and now she's dead. And it's like, well, fucking, like, I don't know jack shit about this lady. And all it does is, like, it just further shows that Chibnall is wasting the two best characters he's written for the show, which are Swarm and Azure.
True.
Who had fuck all to do. And it's like, this was...
Yep.
It's like, now the main plan isn't their plan. Like, they're not the main villains anymore because they didn't do the shit that started everything. They're just being wasted for this character who doesn't mean anything and isn't important. And it just feels like he's focusing his energy, his
Swarm and
his
Azure,
time in the wrong places.
Swarm and Azure are purely just some really, like, fun actors playing characters that are pointless. Like, the Swarm and Azure mean absolutely fucking nothing to the overall story of Flux. They are just there for entertainment.
I thought that he was going to be the main villain. I thought they were going to be the main villains.
Like, I don't get why they didn't just have it so that, like,
They're literally just like some real creepy, like, Halloween haunted house ride monsters. That's it.
Yeah,
and it's such a shame, because it's like, these actors are trying so hard to be good, and they really are good actors, but the characters are just nothing. They're just nothing, man.
Why wouldn't they do it that, like, this place on, like, outside the universe, that's where they were to begin with, that's where they were, like, doing all their shit, and then they were, like, imprisoned, and now they're back. You don't need this extra character. It's pointless. Like, they escaped from prison, and then they started the Flux. You could just do that. You don't need this extra sort of, like, Time Lord person outside of the universe. It's like, this is pointless. It doesn't add anything. It just detracts from what you already have, which are two of the greatest, like, looking villains and best performed villains the show has possibly ever had.
On those things, like, they look cool as. They look like it's a real nostalgia trip too, because it's like it reminds me a lot of, like, PlayStation 2 kind of games from back in the day, but they have, like, a realistic, like, sort of live action aesthetic to them. It's like, these are, like, really cool designs, and you're just gonna waste them on the fucking cannon fodder, nothing villains. It's like, what? Oh, what
can we talk about how dumb the Division is as a concept, though. So already it just seems just identical to the CIA, the Celestial Intervention Agency, which was already a thing established. So was it really worth, like, ruining the Doctor's mystery as a character just for the sake of shoehorning in a thing that we already really had with the Time Lords? And then it doesn't really make sense if they've been manipulating things behind the scenes forever. Well, where were they during, like, the Time War or all the universe-shattering events that happened in the Moffat era? Like, I'm not saying there couldn't be an explanation, but it's just you would have to spend so long going through and explaining, oh, this is why they weren't here then, this is why they weren't here then, and it's just such a waste of fucking time. Tell a new story!
It's like, yeah, I know, like obviously, like, Shay and quite a lot of other people rightfully don't care about the law, and that's absolutely fine. But the fact that Chibnall is actually doing it, it just draws so much attention to all of the inconsistencies for no reason. Like, stuff like the Division let the Time War happen. They let the Master learn everything, destroy Gallifrey, and tell the Doctor. And then there's all the unit stuff as well. It's just like none of these questions get answered, and they're so important to understand how they fit into all this bullshit. It's like, why? What's the point? Like, what is the point?
Oh, God. And that unit stuff as well. So, what? Now unit were only set up in the way they were just so that the Sontarans could invade Earth 60 years later. And the Brigadier wasn't actually responsible for building up, as was heavily implied in the invasion.
It's just like, remember when we did the live stream with Callum, we were talking about Twice Upon a Time, how that's like, the Doctor and the Brigadier's relationship happens because, David Bradley's first Doctor meets Mark Gatiss in the war and is told to look after. It's like, I hate it when they do this. Like, why can't they just have the Doctor and Brigadier be two guys that met during the Web Affair, Like, why can't we just have that?
Can't their friendship be meaningful because their friendship is meaningful rather than because, it was all preordained by some past events?
Like, the cause and effect was so good anyway. It's just like the Doctor and Brigadier meet because he's a soldier that's, defending people and from the Yeti. And then because the Yeti and Great Intelligence, like an alien threat unit, started to investigate if there's other aliens coming to Earth, it's like, it just made sense as it was. And now you got to have some fucking predestined bullshit that doesn't make sense. It's not interesting. And then also, fucking Kate Stewart does this whole thing where she's like, threatens the Grand Serpent. It just randomly just like, oh yeah, no, gotta go, sorry, bye-bye. Doesn't contact the Doctor, doesn't try to stop him, doesn't try to shoot him, nothing. Fucking dumb. Hate this so much. Like, this, honestly, I do not understand how Chibnall thought that made sense. Like, just to have Kate Stewart, head of unit, just let him off the hook. Like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
And also the Division's reason... Oh, wait, no, you go on, Shay. You haven't talked enough.
Well, I was going to say, like, I don't care about, like, lore or anything. But even then, I was, like, watching this, and I was like, what is the... Like, if you view it from, like, just the terms of, like, a casual viewer, which is what I essentially am at this point, it's like, there's no... this means nothing to me. If you're like, oh, Unit was actually the Grand Serpent. I'm like, man, I don't give a fuck.
Exactly,
I could not give less of a shit.
And it's like, shit, bro?
And it's like, why bother doing it? I get that, like, I like the Grand Serpent as a character, but again, it's just another thing where it's like, why are you here? You have no purpose. This is another thing where it's like, the show was supposed to be 8 episodes, and Chibnall just can't bear to cut these ideas.
It's another really, really, really cool actor just wasted on nothing.
Just wasted. And it's like, this is... I don't get why this is in here. It doesn't mean anything to me if, like, oh, Unit was started by this guy. It's like, man... Tell a fucking story.
Exactly.
Like, I don't get it. It's so boring.
And then...
And, like, the return of Kate Stewart. It's like, man, who gives you
And
shit?
the reason for, like, the Division releasing the Flux, I mean, it didn't quite make sense to me. Like, because they kind of said, oh, it was to destroy the Doctor, but then it was like, no, it's not. It's to remove you from the universe. I'm not sure. Did anybody remember what happened there? Because I got a lot of contradictory information.
There was contradicting statements where she's like, oh, I wanted to put you inside the Flux to destroy you, and then she's like, I had to remove you from the Flux so you couldn't stop it from happening. It's like, what the fuck are you saying?
Yeah, I have no idea what the Division is, and like...
And if, like... But so, if they put it in originally to destroy the Doctor, yet they managed to remove the Doctor from there so easily, what was the point? They could have just done that in the first place and killed her and had done with it, about destroying a universe.
Like, again, Well, again, I know, getting tied up in lore, it's not like always the best idea. But again, just because Chibnall makes the conscious decision to try and tie this shit together, it asks so many questions about like, okay, well, what about something like the Day of the Doctor where the Zygons were there and like they did the whole Gallifrey thing, or how about where the fuck is like Martha Jones in this situation? We don't know. There's so much established stuff about UNIT's history that just is never addressed.
And the thing is
that you surely would think would interfere with this shit, and it's like Chibnall just doesn't address any of this.
And see, I'm absolutely fine with ignoring lore. Like, I am a pro, let's just have all self-contained stories, and if there's like a kind of minor quibble that contradicts something from like, ooh, season 8, episode 64, this minorly contradicts an established scientific trope, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't care. Just write your own self-contained stories. But I am going to complain about the lore when you get in the weeds with the lore, and that's all you do. If all you're going to do is just rehash lore, I am going to take you down a peg on it.
So you know how like a few weeks ago I was trying to outline that there's a difference in quality in terms of how things are executed and how there are like the whole plot armor debate we did a few weeks ago, in the sense of like, yes, there are examples of plot armor everywhere, but some do it better than others. And I was trying to show that the War of the Sontarans episode had an example that was a lot worse than other things. It's the same thing here with the lore, in the sense that if you take something like, I don't know, like the unit dating problem from Mordrin Undead, that's a slip up, right? That's a minor slip up with it. They're 10 years too early, right? And yes, it's a contradiction, but it's not like a really, really bad, like, show-destroying weird thing. It's just like a minor, like, oh yes, that doesn't make sense because we saw that the year was this and the invasion or whatever. Whereas something like this, it's different because it's actually like intentionally zoning in on all of this established stuff and just completely forgetting everything about it that's actually important. And that's really, for me, the big bugbearer, is it's a lot more damaging. Like, and I think, again, like you said, I feel like Chibnall should just not fucking deal with this stuff. He should just go and do his own thing.
I thought Chibnall had learned the lesson from the Moffat era, because we've been through all this before. Maybe not quite as bad in most cases, but still, we've been through all this before in terms of bullshit lore changes for the sake of a cheap shot for one episode, before then just abandoning it or not really doing anything with it. And, like, I think, even though there's plenty of Moffat fans out there, but I think even at the time there was this kind of silent consensus that, okay, yeah, we want to move away from these kind of overly lore-based stories. And Series 11 did that. I still don't think it was a great series, but I feel it took steps in the right direction. It just wasn't very well written on a story-by-story basis, but all of that has just been shat on now.
Like, there's things that Chibnall could do that are better than this, that he can do better. Like, just... Like, I think, for example, like, there's an episode of Torchwood called Countryside that he wrote that I actually quite enjoy. Not saying that it's, like, perfectly written or anything, but the reason why it works well is because it's not to do with any of this shit. It's like, it's not this weirdly overly obsessed with like history that he doesn't understand and has like no substance or whatever. All it is just a daytime horror with like really graphic, violence and these really sadistic cannibal characters. That's all it is. It's this really simple thing, and then you have some of the overarching main Torchwood characters' arcs like run through it. And that's it. And that works so much better than something like this, where he's trying to re-establish all of this shit from the history of the show and does it in a way that's dumb and makes no sense and makes characters look stupid. And it's like, it's just, and it's so pointless. Like, what story are we getting from this? Like, what's the actual narrative? It's just a bunch of shit.
It's that thing of, it's the same with like a lot of movies that are coming out recently, like Free Guy or Ready Player One, where it's like recognizing something isn't the same as it being good. Just because you reference units in your story, it's not good. Man. You have a line from the Brigadier that doesn't
I'm actually getting real sick because like there's a lot of modern writers that they rely too much on the past and the future. They don't talk about the present in their stories. Like, it's all about referencing things that came before and teasing things that
it's a futile exercise in key jangling, and I hate it. Can we not just tell an original story, for fuck's sake?
I know, man.
No, we can't.
We could go anywhere and do
again,
anything in the universe, and we're rehashing the same old shit, dysfunctional lore again. And it makes even less sense now. Just leave it, for fuck's sake. Man, okay, right. Connor, you've blackpilled me on this episode. It is as atrocious as you say. It really is that bad. There was just too much.
There's not a single thing I like. There's not a single scene I like in this episode. I might be
level, but I've definitely been turned further towards the side of negativity.
I might be being harsh on it, but I fucking hate this piece of shit so much. Oh my god, we haven't even talked about the stupid scene with Carmen Easter and Belle when they're literally having like a little teasing. Oh, I've got plot armor. You've got plot armor. You can't shoot me. I can shoot you. And then they just forget about it and just fucking fly the ship. It's like, it's almost like.
What did that add to the episode?
3 weeks ago. It's almost like they saw the discourse from 3 weeks ago and like reshot the scene just to fucking make fun of us for it.
That actually, if that was true, I'd have so much respect for that. That'd be so funny.
Like the way they framed that scene with they were like shooting deadly laser bullets at each other. It was almost like a fucking tickle contest or something. It was so dumb. Oh man. Oh.
The one thing I will say is that, and it's another big issue because like it's so underdeveloped. I fucking love the idea of Williamson's tunnels. It's like that's such a great Doctor Who concept, taking like an unexplained thing from history and turning it into this really cool sci-fi idea. But fuck, man, where has it been this whole time? He's such a funny character to watch. And, like, that moment when Yaz says the thing, like, oh, we think there's a time disturbance, and he looks like he's gonna cry, that's, like, the moment of the series for me. I want this character to
and you see, this is the thing.
Focus.
Swarm of Azure, that's one Doctor Who story. Williamson's Tunnels, that's one Doctor Who story. The Sontarans trying to influence Earth's history, that's one Doctor Who story. The Weeping Angels attack a sleepy 1960s village and abandon it, that's one Doctor Who story. The Division, that's probably like quite a long Doctor Who story, but still just one Doctor Who story. These elements do not work when you just smash them together. It doesn't work. They need to be their own stories, otherwise it's just confused and underdeveloped and shit.
Yeah. And a hermit in the Nepalese mountains. That's another Doctor Who story. Or like the thing on the ship that they were doing. That's another Doctor Who story. Or how about the whole story with Joe Martin's Doctor in episode 3? Like that's another Doctor Who story. It's just like, oh my god, man, there's so much going on.
How has Chibnall?
I feel like every aspect.
Chibnall has brought 40.
Every aspect has like a place, but it's like, dude, you don't have the time. Like, someone needed to tell him you don't have the time. Like, I think all of it, like, is good, like, is relatively good on paper, but you just don't have the time for it all. And, like, you have to fucking pick and choose, man. You can't just have it. Like, the stuff with Bell and Vinder, I get it. You want to show, like, the impact that this event is having on, like, the rest of the universe, but you do not have the time to do it properly.
Yeah, man.
Chibnall has managed...
Cut 20% of the plot lines, everything would be so much better.
And like people will come out and say like, oh no, the modern audiences don't have the time for slow-paced TV. It's like, dude, one of the most successful TV shows of all time, Game of Thrones, is a slow-paced TV show. It's like you can have things take their time to develop. You just have to make it good.
And you see, do you know what made Game of Thrones good? Well-developed world, developed characters, which made the plot that went on extremely believable. It made it something that you were invested in. It did the hard work, the groundwork.
To be fair, in that case, George R. R. Martin had years to write those books.
That's
so
true.
There is a much.
Well, I'm not asking for something as good as Game of Thrones. I'm just asking for, let's have some fucking world building and characters. Let's actually focus on just like one basic idea and then spend a while trying to develop it.
How about those 6-part classic Who stories that had a few months tops to write and make, and they were real cool.
One of the best most well-paced Doctor Who stories is Power of the Daleks. It's 6 parts, and like you could boil down the plot to the Daleks managed to take over a colony by being sneaky boys. Like and that's 6 parts. But it works because of the world building, the characters that you're invested in.
Malcolm Ogden Terrence Dix wrote the War Games, which is 10 parts in a very, very short amount of time, and it's my favorite Doctor Who story ever. It has great scale, great world building, great pacing, great characterization, everything. All of this huge scale story all fits together. Everything gets time to develop, and it's really satisfying by the end.
And you see, and what that story does right is, again, it just has a single premise that it focuses on in terms of there are these aliens that are making humans fight to try and build like a super army to take over the galaxy. Like, you can sum it up in a sentence. You can't sum up Flux in like a novella. It's got that many plot threads.
Yeah, man. I'm sure there's lots of people that disagree, but like personally, Survivors of the Flux, this episode is honestly one of my least favorites in the whole show. Like, I hated this with a burning passion.
Oh, it's shit for the birds, man. And just to think, I was kind of vaguely enjoying Flux for like the last 3 episodes, but I did get the feeling last week that the last 2 episodes were going to kill my enjoyment of A Stone Dead, and I was right.
One other thing I really want to mention is like that Next Turn trailer just filled me with depression, man. That fucking Next Turn trailer looks terrible. Like, with apparently the Daleks are going to be in the finale. It's like, oh my god, and the Cybermen as well.
I do think that those are just going to be like, they'll get one line.
Yeah,
one
it'll
shot,
probably be something
gone.
like like in like the Pandorica opens where they only appear for like the last scene. It might be something like that.
Alright, let's move on to final thoughts, because I'm so done with this episode.
You know what? It's funny because like I'm really not the biggest fan of that story, but again, you can sum up the plot of the Pandorica opens in like one sentence, whereas the Flux you can't at all. It's so dumb.
Yeah, I think people underestimate the extent to which, simple ideas need time to really be effectively done as a piece of storytelling. Because you do need to do a lot of groundwork in terms of world building, developing the character, especially in a show like Doctor Who, where you're in a different location every story.
Am I right in saying that Broadchurch is like an award-winning drama?
Yeah, season 1 got some awards. I think it might have got a BAFTA.
Yeah, man. Like Chris Chibnall is an award-winning showrunner. How does this happen? How does someone that wrote this episode an award-winning showrunner? It doesn't make sense.
Final thoughts. Shay, give your final thoughts.
Okay, all right. Well, look. I think even in spite of everything that's been said today, overall, I don't hate it, which is surprising. But
it's because you're a filthy casual.
Because I'm a filthy casual, yes, of course. Dylan, I'm a noob.
Yes, someone who's read the VMAs is a filthy casual.
I've read The Witch Hunters, and therefore, I have the authority to say that this was fine. Which isn't exactly what you want for your prestige sci-fi drama that is ending next week. So,
Here's the thing, Shay. I don't think that's at all a compliment to the episode. I think it's just a compliment to you being such a nice guy. I think you're just a really nice guy.
Oh, honest though. But yeah, I fucking Kevin McNally. I loved him. I love him in this show. He should be in it all the time. I like Dan. I liked the bit where they kill that guy and then dump his body overboard.
Thing is,
I like the stuff with Williamson. I like the guy who's playing the Serpent, but it just, like, so much of the stuff in the episode that's good goes nowhere.
So many great actors
what's about to happen. Yeah, so I don't know. Do we rate it out of 10 still? Is that what we're saying?
I reject the notion that things can be rated out of 10, but you can do it if you want.
Okay. I give this 5 dead bodies thrown overboard out of 10.
It's just like last time when you gave Praxius 5 straws.
Did I?
I think so. I think you all gave it 5 straws.
Yeah, we were obsessed with straws.
He was more interested in fucking Praxius, although I beg to have Praxius back at this point after this episode, man.
I can't even remember why.
With my conclusion, I'll bounce with some of the things
Plastic.
some of the things that Shay said is like, for example, I'll just take one thing that Shay said and give an example. It's like, ask yourself what's the reason why Shay likes Dan and why a lot of people like Dan. Is I think it's because John Bishop is a really nice guy, and I think that really radiates into the character. But when you really think about it, what character does he have? Nothing. He's just a dude. He's just a guy.
Yeah, that is
And
fair.
I-
I would also say, though, it's not just because he's nice, it's because I really want to suck him off.
Fair enough. But like, yeah, no, this is honestly bottom of the barrel. Great actors and great effect artists and really, really impressive, some really impressive, like, large-scale direction was wasted on a script that's absolute garbage from start to finish. The pacing is terrible. Some of the dialogue was abhorrent. The story is an absolute mess. The lore stuff was terrible. Fucking, I hate this. I hate this whole thing. Yeah, I'll probably give it like a 1 out of 10. This is one of the worst episodes. Cannot wait for this showrunner to fuck off. Give me back Daddy Russell, please. I need him now.
Yeah, this is one of those stories where just try and think about the elements of it for more than a few minutes, and it's all gonna fall apart, and it is just absolutely dreadful. As I said, I only kind of mildly disliked this episode when I first came off watching it, but having explored it with you and Connor, Shay, through talking about it, it's like, oh man, it really is that bad, isn't it? It's just, we're still introducing new plot threads, like, and we've only got 50 minutes left, despite having a billion of them resolve already. We're burning.
In Trial of a Time Lord, we didn't know the Valiard's motivations until part 13.
Yeah, and part 13 was shit too. Well, part 14
The
rather.
last 2 episodes of Trial of a Time Lord are dog shit. What the fuck is a megabyte modem, motherfucker?
Well, how about and how about the fact that, like, by the Ultimate Foe, that was the only thing we had to answer, rather than this fucking story where we've got a million things to answer.
And I just hate how the show, similar to how it was during some of the late Moffat era, where it's so willing just to burn down 50 years of established lore in terms of, like, how UNIT got started and why they're there, or who the Doctor is, blah, 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 and, like, obviously get the Doctor's mother in this case. And they're willing to burn that down for the sake of a cheap plot in one series. And it's just crap. Just write a new fucking story, for fuck's sake. Just rehashing old lore. I mean, if any of you are watching this who haven't seen it, go watch My Doctor Needs to Let Go of Its Past video, as that is only getting more and more true. It's aging like a fine fucking wine. This is a vintage wine.
I know I said before that the End of Time Rant's like the most entertaining video you've done, like in terms of like just pure like gold, because it's you two just having a great time. But I think in terms of just like pure like criticism, I think that video on the lore you did is probably your best crafted video. That thing is fucking gold.
It's because it's been my pet peeve for so long. Like, this isn't something I've just brought up because, I hate Chibnall because women. No, it's actually an opinion I've held for a very long time and kind of developed during the Moffat era and has really come to maturity now, and that's why I have so much to say about it. And that's why, in my opinion, I, with laser-like precision, detailed why it doesn't work in the show.
I think it's actually insulting that people think of like this as like a good representation of women in media when it's really not. It's cheap and shit. If you want to see like a good story about like what it's like, living as a female, go watch a series called Fleabag. That's fucking genius. Like that TV show is everything that I think a female representation show should be, because it's actually showing you a character with personality and all the different things that come with being a woman. Whereas this is just like they cast a woman in the role and then they just had her be a bland wooden plank with a bunch of lore wank fucking stories that don't work.
All right,
like,
so
why do people praise this?
This has been going on for over an hour now, I think. So we're gonna have to end it there. But man, I am.
Another thing I would like to say. No, okay.
Oh, no, anything for you, Shay. Well, thanks for coming on, Connor and Shay. It's good to have you.
It's all right. I needed to get that off my chest.
It's good to be back.
Finale's going to be funny.
Finale panel discussion is going to be fun as I'm planning to get a big ensemble of lots of people.
Imagine now Chris Chibnall has to tie shoelaces on a 10,000-foot shoe.
with multiple laces going through each little hole as well.
Yeah.
So, right, anyway, fuck off.